So speaking about women in democracy reminds me of this current moment that we're in now. You do not have to be a Hillary Clinton supporter. You do not have to be a Hillary Clinton supporter to have noticed the deep misogyny in coverage, media coverage of Hillary Clinton's campaign. And I was actually, I was glad that people were finally starting to get some outrage when the Washington Post ran a headline about Hillary's cleavage when she showed up to a speech and forgot to leave her breast at home. But what I was not so pleased about was the fact that everybody was so surprised at this kind of coverage, because coverage of female politicians has been this misogynistic for decades, and I've been writing about it for half my career. I've been writing about it for about 12 years. Back when I was the women's desk director at FAIR in '99, I did an action alert about Larry King Live assembling a panel of experts to answer the question, quote, what does Hillary Clinton bring style-wise to the New York Senate race? And then the answers were, she's bottom-heavy and her legs are fat, and when she looks mean, she gets bitchy and hard, and she's going to turn men off. Seriously, those are all direct quotes. So if women were more than, say, 11%, 12%, 13% of op-ed writers in the nation's most influential newspapers, depending on which outlet, it's only varies by a couple percentage points. If women were more than 14% of guests on Sunday morning talk shows, if women were more than just sort of sidelined off of the hard news sections and into just coverage of fashion and crime and celebrity, et cetera, then maybe there could be more contextualizing of this sort of thing. But I want to read you I have a little job for you. Flashback to the 2002 midterm elections. I'm going to read you the opening paragraph of a Washington Post story, and I've got a job for you. Count the number of sentences that I read as I read them, and then throw up your hands and yell, stop, as soon as you get the sense that this could possibly be a story about politics, okay? Here we go. Linda Sanchez has a new haircut. Her big sister doesn't approve. She thinks it's too spiky, Linda explains. Who cut it for you, Donna? Asks Loretta Sanchez, referring to the hairdresser they both use. Linda nods. I told her I wanted something young and a little bit edgy. Linda is younger, and yes, a little bit edgy. Loretta is older, and yes, a little bit bossy. Together, they're making history as the first sisters to serve together in Congress. So I can stop now? Okay. I don't have to unpack that for you, do I? Good. So if that is how, actually the one thing I will add is that like those ridiculous branded commercials that I won't name which credit card company does, but in the style of those commercials, number of words in the Washington Post style story devoted to the details about these groundbreaking congresswomen's hairstyles, housekeeping preferences, and penchant for, quote, I swear I'm not making this up, hoochie shoes. That'd be 1,766 words, while the number of paragraphs on their political viewpoints, 1, count them. So that's just a small snippet. Some of these are just small snippets of how marginalized and maligned and sometimes just missing women's voices are in corporate media debates. There are any number of other examples that have been every issue that people have talked about at this conference. Katrina, the intersections of race, class, and gender bias played out in media coverage of Katrina in deep, deep ways that actually hindered the recovery and the response, and over the course of the years after, made it impossible for activists to really create the kind of widespread, urgent rebuilding that needed to happen, because the public was under the impression from media that everybody in that area were just roving gangs of thugs and thieves. Turns out later, all rumor, speculation, no more violence in New Orleans that week of Katrina than any other week in the year. And yet you had radio commentators like Neil Borst going on about how the women who were relocated after Katrina were lazy and irresponsible and didn't want to work, and they just wanted to suck off the taxpayers, direct quote, and et cetera, and they should just get a job by going down the street and walking up and down a particular street, and it was very much an allusion to prostitution, and that was better than sucking off the taxpayers, although it was the same thing. Was the kind of debate we heard in radio. So I could go on forever giving lots of examples of content, but I'm not going to do that because I want to segue to, I'm a big believer in media accountability and holding corporate media outlets accountable for the kinds of biases we see in content, but I'm also a big believer in finding solutions and doing something about it. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I founded Women in Media and News, which is a feminist media justice organization that has a 4-part strategy for media reform, media change, media justice for women. The first part of the platform is media analysis. Oh, there you go. Excellent. I didn't even know that was up there. So we do advocacy journalism, we do commentary in media outlets, et cetera, to try and expose and debunk the kinds of biases that I was talking about earlier. We also have one of our media analysis projects is very exciting. It's called the Women's Voices blog. Women is the acronym of our organization, WIMN. The Women's Voices blog, you'll see on the left-hand corner, just that lists Women's Voices, Women, Media, and is the frame. So each person, we have somewhere between 50 and 60 women writers, journalists, media critics, and media activists who take on, each has a different beat. Women, media, and science, women, media, and sports, women, media, and immigration, women, media, and race. The idea is that every issue is a women's issue. Women are invested just as men are in every aspect of society, and women's leadership does actually exist in every area. And what our bloggers look at is how good or how bad a job are media doing in getting these points across. That goes up to only, the list on the left goes up to only C, since this is a static image. Just imagine that if you scroll down, it would go past the carpet, 50 to 60 beats. And I want to point out that as much as women and people of color are marginalized and misrepresented and also just kept out of pundit spaces, op-ed spaces, etc., editors and bookers and producers will often say, we'd love to have more women, we'd love to have more people of color, there's just nobody we can find who's qualified, or women are just fading flowers and they don't want to compete with men, or etc. And if the New York Times and Fox News and CNN, et cetera, can't find women and people of color, it's just because of either laziness or a lack of intentionality, because we were able, with literally zero resources, we have no funding for this particular project, and we were able to assemble 50 to 60 women, all brilliant, all incredibly sharp, all ready to compete, who have important things to say, and 40 to 45% of them are women of color. And so if we can do it with no money, certainly with the vast resources of corporate media, which are, yes, becoming fewer and fewer in terms of money devoted to the actual production of journalism as opposed to CEO compensation, but still, if we can do it with nothing, they can certainly do it with what they have. So it's just, when you hear any excuses about why women and people of color are not adequately and proportionately represented in media, just remember that it's possible if they wanted it. So let me see.